Many of the written works covered in this podcast are older and contain dated language that is problematic by today's standards. The book covered in this episode deals with suicidal ideation. As hosts of this podcast, we strive to have conversations about these topics in healthy and understanding ways. We do not take mental health issues or suicide lightly and do not condone deriving humor and entertainment from other struggles. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is here for anyone who is in need of help. Please dial 988 or visit 988lifeline.org if in a crisis or need more information. Also, cuss words are a part of our regular vocabulary and drinks will be had. So, keep that in mind if you are sensitive to liquored up loudmouths. Welcome to Liquor&Literature via podcast, a book club, and a happy hour. My name is Lauren.
I'm Amber.
You forgot.
Amber apparently forgot who she was. I'm Sam.
I was waiting for Sam to go because I'm like, in a line. And then I'm like, oh, wait, it's my turn.
You remember you just looking at Sam with a smile on your face.
I'm like, come on,
And
Sam.
then I look at you like, you gotta go?
Girl.
Oh my gosh. Starting off strong. But yeah, we
and
are.
German, apparently. Lauren.
Well, yeah. Because of the book we're covering.
Yeah, and we've already had a couple of the cocktails. So.
Yes. So yeah, if this is the first episode you're listening to, welcome. I hope we don't scare you away. But basically, every month we cover a book and we talk about the author. We have a drink and food pairing, and we do a movie adaptation, and we just talk about the book. And this month was Sam's pick. So Sam, what did you pick?
I picked the Sorrows of Young Werther by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. I don't like how you say his last name because it sounds like when I had a speech impediment as a child.
Yeah, it's like reading it looks like Goethe or something like that.
Goethe or Gautier or
I would
like
have
that
said
one
Gautier.
like one like French guy.
That one song.
Yeah.
That was all over.
Yeah, that's what I used to think it was kind of like. I don't know.
Yeah, Gautier.
But it's definitely not. It's apparently called or said Goethe because I never took German, so I don't know.
I did, and I still don't know.
Yeah, very strange. But so my reasoning for taking this book and making it one of our ones to read on the podcast was I read this book about 20 years ago. I was a junior in college, I believe, during my undergrad, and I read it as I read excerpts of it for a romanticism and realism art history class. And if we kind of got into this period of the Sturm und Drang art movements and stuff, which also included the literary movements. And I highly identified with the main character, Werther, at the time.
Oh, no.
You were going through some shit.
I was going through some emo shit. Now I'm just like, girl, I'm so glad you got through it because, wow.
Hey, we all have our ups and downs, so.
I mean, and I was like thinking about it, I was like, why were you so drawn to this? And I was like, oh, I had just studied abroad. I was in love with this English guy, and there was a lot happening in my brain and a lot of hormones apparently too. But I'm real glad that I'm not as embarrassing as this man is.
The Sorrows of Young Samantha.
We're many, let me just tell you. Unrequited love is a thing.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's why I chose this book, because I wanted to revisit it, and I really identified with it at the time. I kind of wanted to see if I still felt that, and I am happily glad to say that I do not. Now I'm just very jaded, and I'm like, this man is an idiot.
Yes.
I'm glad you came to this conclusion, Sam.
I remember months ago when you told me that this was going to be your next pick, you're like, he's probably going to be really annoying now, but back in the day, I really connected with him. So.
And he is embarrassing, like Ben said.
Yeah. So we were listening, I was listening to it on tape because that's how I do it. I read the book like physical book, but I also listen to the audiobook because ADHD is just a hell of a drug. Anyway, sitting there listening in bed, and Ben comes in and he's sitting there with me listening, and he goes, "Oh my God, I'm fucking embarrassed for this guy. Like, this is horrible." He's very embarrassing.
He's very embarrassing. He's very much incel.
Oh,
Now
another incel.
Yeah, now that I like,
what's with these joymans and the incels? Jesus.
I don't know, but yeah. So this was like one of the first incels or something. I don't know, because I don't know, when was this written, Amber?
In the 1700s, Sam.
Whoa! Before we get to the author background, though.
Oh.
Obviously, there's going to be spoilers. I know we announce it every time, but if you haven't noticed, we talk about a book. So if you want to read the book first, just read it first and then listen. If you don't care, you don't care. We're also going to talk about a movie adaptation. So, with that out of the way, though, do we normally do the drink pairing first? I think we do. Yeah,
we do the drink pairing.
Oh shit, that's my
Sam's going to talk about the drink.
I was trying to like segue and I did it too soon.
Discombobbled here.
Damn.
Okay, Sam.
Okay, so last time we had a German-based book, we did Jägermeister, which I'm really glad that we don't have to do that again.
I got wasted.
You like fucking knocked that out of the park.
Thank
that
you.
was so surprisingly good. She was like,
good.
I did a Jaeger drink, and I was like, oh no.
But it was tasty AF.
Even for the weak-tongued bitch.
Yeah.
So this one is also a pretty nice one. So I saw the original recipe for a Cur Royale, which is basically champagne and creme de cassis. If you don't know, creme de cassis is basically a blackcurrant liqueur. I am not about the blackcurrant.
She likes Englishmen, not English fruit.
Yes. Unless you're a slow gin, baby, I don't want you.
Slow gin.
Slow gin is delicious, but
Yum.
that's another story. Yeah, so I was just like, I don't really like the blackcurrant. It's a big thing in Europe. It's not really a thing in America. Like, we don't really use it.
I've definitely heard of it, but yeah, I don't
Much
really,
like
I just
education.
is it a berry?
It is a berry.
That's all I
Yeah,
knew,
there's
yeah.
red and black currants. And I know in like traditional Stollen in Germany, they use black currants and stuff too. So it's like a pretty normal fruit for them to use, but we just don't really use it in America. So what I decided to do was I wanted to do something with Kirsch or Kirschwasser, which is a cherry brandy. It's also a German like liqueur drink, brandy, whatever. It's very hard to find around here, apparently.
You went to how many stores?
At least 3. Like, I probably could have went to one more and maybe would have found it, but I was just like not really hedging my bets there.
Yeah.
So I found something else that is very similar. It's like a sweeter version of Kirsch. And you actually will use a lot of Kirsch in baking, like German baking, when you do Black Forest cakes or whatever.
Tarts or something.
Yeah, anything that's like Black Forest is going to have Kirsch in it because it's like a chocolate cherry like dessert. So I found this cherry liqueur, and it's by Schladerer, and it's actually made in the Black Forest, but it's delicious because it's black cherry brandy, so that's the Kirsch, but it's also mixed with black cherry juice. So it's a little bit sweeter than what Kirschwasser would be. And I got the last bottle of this, so I'm real stoked. And I had never had this before. I've had Kirsch before, because I've used it in baking. And I was like, well, this is pretty freaking close. And you can taste, like by itself, you can taste the alcohol, but it's still got the like that cherry, like that sweet cherryness to it. So it's not like, you know?
Yeah.
Like you would with a brandy normally, in my opinion, because I am not a brandy drinker. But anyway, going back to the recipe.
Brandy's a fine girl. Sorry.
Not me. I will not be a good wife. Sorry.
Again,
Oh, me either.
Again, ADHD is a hell of a drug.
Someone had to do it at some point.
Yeah, I mean,
probably won't be the last time, folks.
Nope.
I'm here. No.
And I'm here. No.
Yeah.
But okay, so a Cur Royale, like I said, it was like creme de cassis, blackcurrant. So I went with the Kirsch Royale, which I also found a recipe for that online. You know, not a big deal. But I tried the original recipe and I was like, this is just, it's not enough for me. Mm-hmm. So I have changed the recipe a slight bit. The original recipe, if you want to follow that, is a 1/2 ounce of Kirsch and 4 ounces of champagne. What I did was a full ounce of Kirsch / cherry liqueur and the 4 ounces of champagne and or sparkling wine. So we tried 2 different sparkling wines. They're both Blanc de Blancs, which is like a brut, but it's a softer brut. It's not like the sneaky cheese like bruts like there are sometimes. And I also did about 3 drops of cherry, like Fee Brothers cherry bitters, just to add a little bit more depth to it. And then there is it's a cherry in the bottom, and I guess you could say it's like a fermented cherry or one of the fancy cocktail cherries that they use that are the Amarena cherries that are like fermented in booze.
The ones are finding like old fashions and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they're like $23 for a tiny little package of them. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, so the ones that we're actually using have been fermenting for a year because we're ridiculous and I'm ridiculous and I saved them. They've been in the fridge, so it's fine. We're not going to die.
They are Samantha made.
I will say if we do die from these cherries, that it was
delicious.
Samantha in the podcast room with the cherries.
What a wonderful way to die.
Yes.
Cheers. Wait, what was this called again?
It would be like a Kirsch Royale. Like
Kirsch Royale. Ooh,
like a variation of a Kirsch Royale.
So what would be the non-alcoholic version of those?
Oh, okay. So
Sam's like, I got this shit. I'm making it up.
You could use, for the cherry liqueur, you could use like a tart cherry juice or like a black cherry juice. Mm-hmm. For the cherry, you can use just like a fresh or frozen black cherry. You can get them in bags. Mm-hmm. And then there is some non-alcoholic champagne / sparkling wine. It's a German name. Einswein Zero, I believe is what it's called. Einswein Zero. EINSZWEI 0 ZERO. And it's a non-alcoholic kind of wine.
Cool.
Interesting.
Awesome. Well, I think this is this is one of your, between this one and the bell jar one, this is your fanciest one, I think, maybe.
Oh, it's because it's like the wine cocktails.
I don't know, the one from the Color Purple was pretty fucking fancy.
That one was pretty fancy. The butterfly pea. But either way, I think this is a very fancy drink.
It's
and
very
I
nice.
say you can only drink it with your pinky out.
Oh.
More.
It's delicious. I've had probably like 3 or 4 right now.
They're very easy drinking.
Yeah, they are.
And dangerous too, because these cherries pack a wallop.
Yeah, like
they
sitting in
nice.
Cognac for a freaking year. They're intense.
They're
but
nice.
they're delicious.
I tried one without it sitting in the drink, and it was like, woo! And then I tried one after I drank one drink, and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's like better after it sits in the.
Yeah, it's like it's not as like burny from the cognac, but it's got a little bit more of like a nice sparkling wine champagne taste. And
they were trying to convince the weak-tongued bitch to eat a cherry. I'm not sure yet.
She still hasn't eaten her one from her first
I'll
drink.
probably eat it after. Like, we could do it on the show.
We'll do it on air. We'll do it live.
Listen, I've had one. Lauren's had one, and I put 2 in both of our refills because they're delicious.
I've had 2 already because I tried one in my drink.
That's true. I did too.
I'm doing shots of cherries, y'all.
That's why you guys are so fucked up, and I'm just like,
they're delicious, man.
Well, it's because you were finishing your author background notes, Amber.
Okay.
Speaking of which, let's
talking on the
phone.
To be fair, well, my mom called. I don't know. Anyway, to be fair.
So when did this bitch write this book?
Yeah.
I don't fucking know. Anyway.
You should.
You should, yeah.
I'll tell you in a minute when I talk about it. Listen, this man had the audacity to be born in the 1700s and live to his 80s. What a fuck nut.
I say kudos to that.
Kudos to that. He lived a very full life.
Shit.
There was, yeah.
So, I guess we'll do the author.
Yeah,
thing
now it's the author. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to.
Yes. So, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, who was born August 28th, 1749, which means he should have been dead by 30.
We'd all be dead.
To be fair.
Be dead, yeah.
We'd all be long gone.
He should have fucking died.
Rude.
Sorry. I don't really want him to die.
He wrote so many good works, apparently. I did not read anything other than this one.
And I don't know that I'll ever read anything else because of this one.
Well, we know what Amber feels.
Sorry. So anyway, I'm sure he's brilliant. He was a lot of things. The list of things he wasn't would be shorter. He was a poet, a playwright, a novelist, a scientist, a statesman, a theater director, a critic, and amateur artist. And he was considered the greatest German literary figure of the modern era.
Whoa.
Again, the list of things he wasn't would have been fucking shorter.
Damn.
Yeah.
So, I printed out my notes from Britannica, by the way.
Why is that a book?
Exactly. There's 50 pages, and I'm missing fucking 10 years somehow.
Yeah. You had to really do your...
I was gonna do, research last night. I was like, fuck, I'll do it tomorrow. And then I, got it printed out. I was like, fuck.
Okay, but we, like I told Amber, we are not the History Channel, so do not rely on us for a full history of a person.
No.
But I'm gonna do as best I can the highlights because he lived to 83 and he did do a lot of things and some of it's really cool and some of it's like, all right.
Yeah, he wrote a lot of shit.
He did. I'm not going to tell you about all of the things he wrote. Faust is one of them, and that's the big one.
That's the one that I've heard of.
Yeah, that's the one that
most people have heard of.
Yeah, never read it though.
So he wrote Faust, if you needed to know. But I'm not going to tell you about any of his... I'm not going to tell you about any of his other fucking books. There's a lot of them, and just, yeah. So, since the end of the 18th century, his writings have been described as classical, which is kind of impressive since he was born in 1749.
Yeah.
That's pretty early to be considered a classic. He was one of the very few figures of Germany's 18th century literary renaissance who were, in the full sense of the term, bourgeois.
Bourgeois?
He was a town child from a rich family and an essentially middle-class world. Again, Britannica, check it out.
This is the Cliff Notes
This is the Cliff Notes version of Britannica. His father, Johann Caspar Goethe, was a man of leisure who lived on his inherited fortune and devoted himself after studying law in Leipzig and Strasbourg and touring Italy, France, and the Low Countries to collecting books and paintings and to the education of his children. Goethe's mother, Katharina Elizabeth Texter, not of the cell phone variety, was one of the daughters of Frankfurt's most senior official and was a lively woman closer in age to her son than her husband.
Oof.
Yep.
Can I just say that his dad turned into a really friendly ghost?
Did he?
Casper?
Oh, Casper. Fuck.
I got it.
I was like, damn.
Good one, Sam.
Good one, Sam. Sam got goofball Amber here.
Well,
I was like waiting for it, and I was like,
Sam
nothing.
Normally doesn't have those
I forgot his name. I just read it and I fucking forgot.
I got it. Casper the Friendly Ghost. I love Casper.
So he was the oldest of 7 children. Only one other survived into adulthood.
Damn.
Yeah.
Oof.
His sister Cornelia, for whom...
That's a rough name.
I'm sorry.
Cornelia.
For whom he felt an intense affection, of whose potentially incestuous nature he seems to have been aware. So he also had another emotional factor in his childhood, which was a love-hate relationship with his younger brother, who died at the age of 6, which I don't understand.
Damn.
How could you have a love-hate relationship?
That's my feeling. I'm like, how do you love-hate somebody at 6?
Yeah. You barely have been alive. How do you even have things to fight over?
Yeah. He was educated with his sister at home by tutors until he was 16. And his father had definite ideas about his education and intended that Goethe should follow the pattern he himself had pursued as a young man, studying law, gaining experience at the...
You better pronounce this right.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yes, thank you. Reichskammergericht. Yep, sure. Which is the Supreme Court of the Holy Roman Empire. Anyway, and eventually rounding off his worldly culture with a grand tour of Italy, after which he could marry and settle down, perhaps rising, as his father had not been able to do so, to a position of responsibility in city administration.
So his dad sucked.
Yeah.
Cool.
In 1765,
Surprise.
Goethe left home to study law in Leipzig.
Leipzig.
He had an almost finished form of a biblical play and moralistic novel when he entered the university, but after reading them to his friends, he ostentatiously burned them as unworthy of his now advanced taste and started to write erotic verse and a pastoral drama,
Sexy.
Yeah.
which was called The Lover's Spleen.
The lover's spleen?
The English translation is The Lover's Caprice.
Caprice.
Yes.
How is that English? Caprice?
I don't fucking know.
Isn't that Italian? Spleen, though.
Isn't that a salad? I don't fucking know.
That's
I've heard.
Caprese is a salad.
What is up with the spleen?
This was an Amber joke. He fell in love with the daughter of an innkeeper.
Kathakin Schnoff.
Wow.
Schnockf.
Handful. Katschen Schnoffkopf.
Kin. I know the CHN is kin.
But she preferred someone more solid, a lawyer who eventually became deputy burgomaster.
She's a fucking innkeeper's daughter. What the fuck?
Oh,
She's
she
paid.
I mean, to be fair,
Though we can't even pronounce
Yeah.
it. Jeez.
Schnoff, though. It's like schnoff.
Schnoff.
but to be fair, if you're an innkeeper's daughter and you have the potential to marry somebody else, wouldn't you do that?
I mean, if they had
In that
standing,
time,
yeah.
yeah.
But it's for the love.
It's
Is it-
not.
Cares what they do.
Do I get a goat or a house?
I take the goat. I'm taking the goat, y'all.
I take
Lord,
the
it's like
house.
I
Fucking
my
love
bad.
goats.
I'd take the house too. Sorry.
Yeah.
I cannot. I gotta take off my coat or my jacket. I'm sweating.
I think we all got pretty drunk
What is
early.
going on? I'm sweating. I think it's the cherries.
Okay.
Ooh, okay.
Anyway, so he took revenge on her by starting his first mature play,
Mature.
a verse comedy showing a woman's regrets after a year of marriage to the wrong man.
Okay.
Yeah,
Why don't you let her write that book, not you?
yep. His emotional state became hectic, and his health gave way. He may have suffered an attack of tuberculosis.
Oh.
Yes.
It just went away.
I didn't know heartbreak did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in September of 1768, he returned home to Frankfurt without a degree.
Sometimes it just takes a while, though.
Yeah.
It does.
And you don't
Emotionally
even need a
mature,
degree
it's fine.
Yeah.
half the time. So.
Another
That's
bout
also
of
true.
illness then brought him apparently near death, and in the aftermath, he underwent a brief conversion from free thinking to evangelical Christianity.
Oh, God. Really?
Which is like a weird,
That's weird.
I was sick. Jesus!
But that happens all the time.
It does
though.
happen.
Yeah.
That
It
shit
does
happens all
happen.
the time where it's like something happens, like, I'm gonna go to religion.
But he
now.
ended up being agnostic by the end of his life,
He
if I remember right.
went back and forth
He
on a
went
lot of
very
things.
back
I
and
kind of did a little deep dive on him
Yes.
too, yeah.
And then he fell in love again.
For
Yes.
the 4th time?
Second.
Second time?
Maybe. That
Might
we know
have been
of.
the fourth,
Second,
you
that we
never
know.
know.
Yeah, who fucking knows? Anyway, his liaison with Friedrika, Brian, one of the pastor's daughters, was brief and intense.
Oh.
But he was already terrified of marriage and the fixity of commitment it seemed to involve.
He sounds like a
Joke.
fuckboy, dude.
He is a fuckboy.
The first fuckboy.
I wouldn't say the
Foreshadowing.
first,
Oh, maybe
He's a
not the first.
fuckboy.
Yeah. The first known fuckboy.
Yeah. Once he'd taken his licentiate at the university, He left Frederica rather abruptly and returned to Frankfurt. She appears to have suffered a breakdown, and the theme of the woman betrayed runs through all of Goethe's writings of the next 8 years and beyond.
It's fucking rude.
It is rude. And then he started a legal practice in Frankfurt, but found the new literary possibilities to which Herder had opened his mind, running away with him. It seems very dramatic. Here again, he fell in love, which means his penis fell into someone for real.
Yep.
Penis fell into you.
Sorry.
Oh wait,
We don't know that, but you know.
He wouldn't apologize about that.
Here again, he fell in love, though this time there was no danger of marriage, since the woman, Charlotta.
Charlotta!
Oh, yes.
That is going to come into
Buff.
play later.
Was already engaged. Oh, wow. Shock and all, right?
Wow. That
After-
story's getting real.
This story is getting pretty biographical.
After an emotionally
It really
tormenting
is, honestly.
summer, spent largely with her and her fiancé, Goethe, in September, wrenched himself away and returned to Frankfurt
Okay.
in a dramatic state.
Oh,
A little later,
Oh, dear.
a little later, he heard that another young Wetzlar lawyer he had slightly known, Karl Wilhelm Jerusalem, had shot himself. It was rumored he had done so out of hopeless love for a married woman.
There's way too many things that are just running congruent
This is going
with
to
this
come
book.
into play later,
Yes.
everybody, all
Ugh.
the listeners.
In 1774, even greater literary success brought him European notoriety. He fused the two elements in his Wetzlar experiences, his affair, if it can be called such, with Lotte, and Jerusalem's later suicide, into a novel in letters modeled on some guy's story.
So you're peeing, Sam. Sam is like pouring
She's pouring drinks.
It sounds like she's pissing.
It was modeled in this other guy's story, written in 2 months earlier in the year, appeared in the autumn, and captured the imagination of a generation. He wrote the fucking Sorrows of Young Werther, okay? Based on his experience in Wetzlar. Fuck.
Do we need
Did you refresh me? I didn't want more.
You are
Did you
refreshed.
Did you hear Sam peeing? She was peeing into your glass.
I didn't know
With-
she was peeing in my
With the
glass. Let me taste
champagnes.
it.
The champagnes.
We get lit,
It's
folks.
lovely.
Apparently we needed it for this book. All
Listen.
right.
Sam, are you diabetic?
No, but listen.
She just peed into all our glasses.
Champagne only lasts so long.
Oh,
You
that's
must use
true.
it before it's like not bubbly anymore.
Champagne. Anyway.
In order to be responsible.
And I don't have the little stoppers that you use for champagne. I
Oh.
looked for them and I could
I
not
have
find
little
them.
rubber ones.
I don't need your rubber.
This-
No. No, these are ones that are for specifically.
Don't make eye contact when you say that to me.
I don't need your
That
rubber.
was so creepy.
No, I don't.
I don't need your rubber.
No, there's ones specifically for like sparkling champagne.
This is gonna be one of our
and
funniest
whatnot.
ones.
I couldn't find them, so we have to use these 2 bottles now.
So he ends up getting engaged to Anne Elizabeth Schonmann. Lily is her. She goes by Lily.
Lily.
Which was the daughter of a Frankfurt banking family and a suitable and attractive partner. But he was still afraid of being pinned down. Again, fuckboy.
Fuck boy.
And in May 1775, without a word to Lily,
Ugh.
he suddenly set off with some admiring visitors,
Ugh.
whom he had never met before, on a journey to southern Germany.
The fuck?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they said that the purpose was probably to visit Cornelia, his sister, who is now married, but Goethe also intended to go on to Switzerland, which was widely regarded at the time as the home of political and personal freedom. And he was dressed apparently like Werther at the time in a blue tailcoat and a buff waistcoat and trousers.
He sounds obnoxious.
He does sound obnoxious as fuck. So then he leaves for like 11 fucking years to go to Italy.
Damn. So he did eventually
And
get
he's
to
like,
Italy.
bye, Lily. I'll I'm leaving to go to Italy.
I mean, I've been to Italy, and I would also leave for 11 years to Italy. So, I mean, good for you, Goethe.
I've heard good things about Italy.
Yep.
They probably didn't want him there. They were like, get out of my country. You are fucking annoying.
That's possible.
So somewhere in that 10-year time, I think that I was probably introduced to Christiana Sophia Vulpius, who was his longtime lover.
Long-time lover.
As in how long?
I don't know.
They never got married.
It just said
they were
long-time
just
lover
lovers.
in the like,
Okay.
On and off
Like,
again.
A
I was
long-time
like, what the
lover
fuck
could be
is
like
this?
3 years, but
On
it could
and
also
off
be
again.
like 15 years. Like,
I mean, he lived till he was 80.
The fuck it is it?
Yeah.
And we lost 10 years.
So anyway, in 1806, Napoleon routed the Prussian armies at the Battle of Jena. Yes. 12 miles from the battle, was subsequently occupied and sacked, but Goethe's house was spared because Napoleon admired him because he was the author of Werther.
Yep.
Wow.
No, I actually... that's something I put in my notes.
Yeah.
That I wanted to talk
Napoleon
about.
was like buddies with
Kind
him,
of
I guess.
intense.
Yeah.
I'm
I
not
am not surprised.
Yes.
He's like,
Surprise.
I love it.
Surprise.
Surprise. That's Italian for surprise.
Yes.
So,
Surprise.
so apparently she showed great courage in keeping control of the soldiers. And so to secure her position in these dangerous days, Goethe formally married her.
Ooh, oh!
Yes. In the vestry of the church 5 days after the battle. So he's like, all right, they probably know that I'm like sticking it to her because I have been for like
He
ever.
only did it for
Let's do
like
this.
political
He's been
reasons.
Oh,
scooping
always.
her.
He marries her, and then, in an obvious reaction against this decision to finally commit himself, Goethe shortly afterward fell briefly and passionately in love with an unremarkable young lady, which is fucking mean, by the way.
Oh,
Wilhelmine.
That is mean.
an
Personally-
unremarkable young lady. She was probably perfectly fine, you
So-
bitch.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Probably in the context of this, they mean she had like no
No
fucking
land,
titles or
no
anything.
title,
Yeah,
whatever.
but
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
Whatever.
With an
Who
unremarkable
gives a
young
shit?
lady, Wilhelmine Herzlieb, yep, extricating himself from the entanglement only with considerable pain. I don't know what that means.
So it was really hard to like actually separate himself from her.
Yes.
Because
You're about to spill, Sam.
no, you know what? The thing is, I had this in a clenched fist, and it's not spilling anywhere.
But in 1816, he was cruelly reminded that he could not flee present realities entirely. His wife died in June, probably of epilepsy.
Oh no!
What the fuck?
They
They
didn't have
don't even
treatments for
care
that.
to really know.
Yeah, they don't have treatments for that at the time. She
Probably
yeah.
of epilepsy.
Probably of epilepsy.
She had the seizures. Who cares?
Yep. Anyway, this is so dumb. So he's in Marienbad, and he was a guest of the Levitzau family, and he fell in love with their daughter Ulrika,
Ulrika.
to
That's
whom
pretty.
in 1823,
Like it.
when she was 19,
He's probably like, what, 40 at this point in time?
No,
74.
Jesus H. Christ. Okay, goddbye. Good
Okay,
night.
fucking, what's the Playboy dude?
So she was
Same thing.
she was 19, and shortly
Okay.
before his 74th birthday.
Hefner.
Hugh Hefner.
So he's 73, but almost 74.
Stop it.
He proposed marriage.
Stop it now. Your dick don't barely work. Calm
that was
down.
me barfing.
Wait,
But not really.
family reluctance probably played as great a part in Ulrika's
I would
refusal
fucking hope so.
as any personal disinclination. In anguish, because he was surprised at 74 that a 19-year-old didn't want to marry him.
Saggy balls.
He,
man.
I'm just he returned to Weimar, drafting in the carriage a poem Elegy, which he later made into the centerpiece of a book he entitled Trilogy of Passion.
Weimar.
Yes. I forgot to mention that he had 5 kids. All of them died but one.
I'm not surprised he had kids.
Jesus.
He probably didn't really spend time with
But
them.
wait.
What?
In 1829, celebrations throughout Germany of Goethe's 80th birthday. Woohoo. But in 1830, however, came the unexpected and terrible news that his son had died in Rome during his own Italian journey.
Oh, Jesus.
So the only son that did live
he died.
died. He had like 5 grandkids or
That's
some
really
shit.
something to cry about. What the fuck?
And that is sad. So Goethe then fell seriously ill immediately after, but he recovered.
Just like the tuberculosis.
But I needed to look at Sam to say that. But he recovered.
An attack.
This is what's
Sorry.
gonna happen. The next time I'm sick, I'm gonna be like, sorry, I had a bout of tuberculosis, but I got over it.
I'm fine.
I was
Fine.
taking
I'm
a drink at the
fine.
time she said that, and I just swallowed it and looked at her. And I was like, really?
Yes.
Really?
That,
It's fine.
that-
But you can tell him on my last page, so you know.
Thank God, because I got to pee again, and I'm
Jesus.
probably going to be mad about it.
Sorry. He still had work to do. And
No,
only
he didn't.
in August 1831,
He thought
when
he did, but he didn't.
shortly before his 82nd birthday, he sealed a manuscript of Part 2 of Faust for publication after his death. The following spring, having caught a cold,
Is this where he dies?
he died of a heart attack.
Okay.
Sitting in his armchair in the modest little bedroom beside his study on March 22nd, 1832, at about 11:30 in the
He
morning.
probably had pleural fusion.
I will say, I'm not sad that he died, but holy damn shit. That's probably the longest biography we've ever
lived-
had. Holy
Yep, I hope
fucking
it's the
long.
longest biography we ever have in the history of this fucking podcast. That was rotten for me.
And you didn't even
fucking much.
you
I'm
didn't
sorry,
even cover
Sam.
everything.
I missed 10 years of his life.
And it was not enough.
I know.
God
Sorry, Sam.
Damn, god damn.
Sorry, Sam. I feel bad though.
She's the one that did this to us. I know that was a long author background. Thank you, Amber.
I'm
That was
so sorry to everyone.
So intense.
so hard. But I had a couple more things because I ended up like
Lauren
reading a little
also
bit
deep
into-
dived.
Well, there,
No.
it's,
But wait, there's more, Sam.
No.
you did this to us, though. But this is related to what the book that we're talking about,
Okay.
The Sorrows of Young Werther.
Listen,
So-
I didn't have a nap today, so I'm tired.
All right. So did you guys know that
No.
this was like The Sorrows of Young Werther was really like a it took off. Like people fucking loved this book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Amber knows.
Yeah, they like jacked off to it a couple times, I think.
Damn.
But the thing that I really want to talk about was that it started a phenomenon known as Werther fever, which caused young men throughout Europe to dress in the clothing style described for Werther in the novel.
Oh, what
Fever,
douchebags.
fever.
And they also had items of merchandising such as prints, decorated Meissen porcelain, and even a perfume was produced off of the book.
Dang.
So it's funny because it's like, yeah, this was written in like the 1700s, but to think about it, of like that was like the Bieber fever, whatever of
Like,
that time, you know?
Very
Like
emo, yeah.
Beatlemania. for
Beatlemania,
the 1700s.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because we'll get to that later. But it was like a phenomenon. So I thought that was interesting because, like, sometimes for me personally, it's hard for me with stuff this old to think of it. Like, I like history stuff, but it's hard for me to think of it relevant to today. But it's like, well, we're literally reliving history a lot of the time. So that I thought caught my eye because it's like, oh, that was literally they're like, oh, we're gonna get Twitter pated about this for a year, you know, or more, or whatever.
Twitter paid
Well, that was my thing. It's like, what makes it a classic just because it's old? Like,
I
I
looked
guess-
up what a classic was.
Ooh,
once.
what is it?
I'm
Let us
going to
know.
Google it again. But it's, if I remember correctly, and I'll look it up after, it's something that withholds the test of time. If
Yeah.
I remember correctly. That's
Okay.
what a classic translates
That makes
to.
sense.
and that makes sense, especially since there was so much of a like uproar after this happened.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I honestly, 20 years since I've last read it, I was like, I get it. But like when I was 20, 21 and read it, I was like, oh, I can just really identify with this. You know, I feel like that makes it a classic because people can still like get that feeling of like, I understand what he's going through.
Mhm. Things that he's going through in this book, all the emotions, it's very relatable, but the way the actions that he has, it's very dated, but it's just interesting to see, like, I don't know. I could see why this book was groundbreaking when it came out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But-
And then reading how like much people loved it and clamored for it at the time, I was like, oh, no wonder it's a classic, because it had so much popularity at the time and everything.
But it brings to mind like so many questions as to like modern day of like, oh, well, do you believe in this, like, or that, or how would you approach this with what he was talking about in the book? And I think we would find a very completely different response, which I would hope so.
Yeah.
You know, compared to the time.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was the book reportedly also led to some of the first known examples of copycat suicide, which I don't know if you guys know what that is, but there were the men were often dressed in the same clothing as Goethe's description of Werther and using the similar pistols. Often the book was found at the scene of the suicide. So there's a lot of debate with copycat suicide. I've listened to some podcasts about copycat suicide. Some say it's more inflated than it should be. There's a lot of stuff in regards to Kurt Cobain. He's a big copycat suicide theme. I think it does happen. But I also think that a lot of it is inflated and more like, oh, did you hear about this? And then it becomes like, oh, did you hear 10 people? Sensationalized. But apparently this was one of the first ones that kind of coined that.
It's very interesting.
So I kind of wanted to keep that in mind when we're reading this. And I thought that was really relevant just because of the timing and everything of like when this was written. And again, thinking about that was the Beatlemania of the time and everything, and how people thought about romance and everything at the time and how they could deal with it at the time.
Because and I do not see this book as a great romance.
No, I don't either, but I'm just saying it's kind of like a Romeo and Juliet situation.
Oh, I know.
It's where like, at the time it's like, oh my God, his love for this person strove him to do this. But now it's like, oh, well,
they were 14 years old and it was really foolish.
Yeah, it's a different kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. As a person who has a little bit of a different view on this, just because I have
you took a class on it.
Yeah, it's such a long time ago. And identified myself as similar to Werther's character. Like, I would never do a copycat suicide, but I could kind of identify with the death of this obsession, because that's what it was. It was an obsession. It wasn't like a love by any means like he thought it was. It was an obsession.
I mean, I think we're all kind of cringy in our teens and early 20s.
Yeah.
And I think we try and fit these pieces of puzzle into our lives that do not fit our puzzles at all. But we're in our 20s and we feel like we need to get to that next point. We need to get to the next step because that's what's expected of us in life. And like, it's not. We don't need to do all of that. But a lot of us learn from society that that's what we should be doing. And so I think that we take these fucking wet, misshapen puzzle pieces and try and fucking force them into our puzzle. And it doesn't fit at all. But we're like, this is fine. It'll work. And it doesn't.
Everyone's like, don't put all your eggs in one basket, but you're also like kind of forced to at the same time during that time period of your life because everyone expects you to do all these things. But
go to college, figure out what your life is. Choose a career immediately following high school. Go to college.
Because you know exactly what you're going to do at that age.
Yeah.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. Like, things happen the way they're supposed to happen, friends. So, like, I don't not relate to him. He was just very cringy because he was in his 20s.
And I think he's really cringy now because like we're much older. Like
yes.
I'm almost 40. Next year I'll turn 40. So like
huzzah!
To me, I'm just like, oh boy, that's a lot of drama. That's a lot of emotions, and I'm like very jaded now. Whereas like when I was 20 and reading this, I was like,
everything's new.
I got all them big feelings too, sir. I totally get it. Like, I understand. Like, I'm not gonna go kill myself over someone. So, you know, I get that. And I can kind of see where he's coming from. But also at the same time, nobody is worth killing yourself over.
No.
Nope.
Well, and also you got to think about 1700s. Mental health was definitely not even a word, a term.
If anything,
like
you
that.
went to the asylum and that's where you stayed.
And probably the amount, I did not do this deep dive. I probably should have, just because I would have had fun doing this deep dive. But
fun
like the
in a
amount of
way.
romanticism books that are about unrequited love where it ends up with suicide was probably very prominent.
That, like I said,
which is fucked up. But at the time, that was like, that is your ultimate way of saying you love them. But it's like, because people didn't live that long.
Well, that's like...
And it was like romanticized. It's like, oh, Romeo and Juliet, they died when they were 14 because they loved each other.
No, they didn't.
And it's like...
They didn't.
They didn't fucking know each other.
You did not have to do that. And so reading it now, it's like, you would have had so many more resources now. We would have had... so much. You would have had so much support now. You would not have had to do that.
Well, like I said, the class that I actually read the excerpts for this was called Romanticism and Realism. So, like, they're art movements, but at the same time, like, they are strongly based in Romanticism.
Mm-hmm.
And what is Romanticism? Well, you basically romanticize anything and everything that's like overly dramatic and ends in this like, oh, he killed himself for me, he must love me.
Yeah.
No. Or is he just a selfish asshole that doesn't really understand his emotions? I mean, so I get it, but also
it was a genre.
It's a genre. It's a little intense. It's a lot
Very
intense,
intense.
Actually.
When I was reading, I'm like, I totally get why Sam picked. Like,
I'm not going to downplay this. Yeah,
like this is very Sam coded.
It is
not a bad thing. Like I get it.
I enjoy this type of stuff, but do I live my life like this? No. Because I am a jaded bitch and I'm just like, this motherfucker is stupid as fuck, but I'm going to enjoy this book.
Okay, the last thing I want to say before we kick off this book,
get into the book,
which we've been recording for an hour and a half. But anyway, we always record these way in advance. And I was on my way to my younger sister's house for Thanksgiving. And I had just started this book, and I was on a flight with my older sister, and she was talking about she's like, "Oh, what book are you reading?" And I'm like, "Oh, Sam picked this book. It's called Sorrows of Young Werther. I don't know really what it's about, but it's kind of about this, whatever." So then we get to Karen's house, my younger sister, and I'm reading it on my tablet or whatever. And like a couple days later, and Karen's like, "What book are you reading?" And Ellen's like, "Oh, it's called like The Diary of a Sad Boy." Ellen!
It's so true.
I was like, yes,
it is very true.
I was like, she was like, I couldn't remember the name. And I'm like, no, that is the name.
Legit, yeah.
She's like, The Diaries of a Sad Boy.
That would be like the name of it today. That's
and what's funny was I just explained to her the synopsis. I had not even read any of it yet.
The Diary of a Sad Boy.
And with that, Sam, you want to kick us off? Let's finally start talking about this book.
Okay.
Almost 2 hours in.
I have a question for you guys. This book actually brought up a lot of questions for me.
Yes.
First off, do you believe in soulmates?
Yeah. Yes and no.
I feel like there could definitely be soulmates sexually or non-sexually. It doesn't have to be both. It doesn't have to be
I think there's a variety.
Either. Yeah.
Yes, I believe in soulmates, but I also believe that sometimes our life experiences shape who our soulmate is.
Yes.
Oh, 100%.
I can believe that.
100%. And it could change like as you go through life too.
So leading with that,
No.
do you think that Werther and Charlotte were soulmates?
No.
I
I didn't see that they had very much in common.
I didn't either.
And I saw that most of what he
superficial
found so interesting about her was that she was beautiful and seemed motherly.
Yes.
Yeah.
She
And that she
seemed
could
like
read.
the perfect wife. That's
Yes.
what she seemed like to him, I feel like, and that's what he wanted.
And also, I feel like he was very childish.
Yes,
in
he was.
his like mannerisms and just attitude.
No, 100%.
He wanted a mom. Well, he definitely had a mom, but his mom was more strict and everything. So I do not at all think that they were soulmates. I also don't think that Albert and Charlotta were soulmates.
Nope, I don't think
I
so
don't
either.
think so either.
And that's probably why all this happened.
Yeah.
I think Charlotta is a very interesting character because it seems like she had a lot of suitors that were just like desperately in love with her, but she was not desperately in love with anyone, even Albert.
I think the relationship between Charlotta and Albert was one basically made on Mom's deathbed.
Yes.
I think Mom saw that they were paired together.
They say that.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think Mom wanted them together, said, hey, you two are great together, and decided that there, and she, out of guilt, ended up marrying him.
So
Yes.
let's, just out of context for people that have not read the book, let's back up a little bit.
You want to go to the start?
So there's Werther, our main person, and then there's Charlotta, and there's Albert.
Yes.
And then there's... Who does he keep
Wilhelm?
Wilhelm.
Okay, so that's one thing I did want to point out. Is,
Wilhelm. But
okay.
not Valheim, which was the town.
Yeah, I know. They're very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, this whole book is letters.
Kind of like a diary / letter.
Yeah, from
writing.
Werther's point of view to Wilhelm, his friend, through the majority of the book.
Which seems like he's like disapproving of a lot of things.
Yeah. And
It doesn't really say, though, because you only have... So we only get one side of this story until later.
It seems like how he
70%
writes back,
through.
though. It
Yeah.
seems like maybe
maybe
Wilhelm is a little disapproving.
Yes,
I
it
think
does.
so. Well, or I think he's just worried for his friend.
That's also
I think
fair.
so.
Sam.
Mm.
Introduce us to what Werther's doing at this point. What's going on in Werther's life?
So in the beginning, he just kind of like happens upon this town. He's like, oh, this is great. I'm just like out in the world, like doing my thing. He's kind of dodging employment.
He mentions his mom a couple times. I feel like it's one of those things where
Sounded
he
like
came
a
from a
strain.
pretty rich family, and he's probably been a pretty privileged child, and he relies on his inheritance to get by.
Yep.
Mhm.
And
Kinda
his
thing.
relationship with his mother seemed weird, strained. I kind of, from the very get-go, was like, I think he's a fuckboy.
Well, actually, there's a point where, because, this is written in very old English, so I had to reread things a couple times. And at one point, it kind of sounded like he was moving here to escape a girl.
It did. It's the beginning of the book.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not crazy.
No.
Do you have the quote for that?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
about to read the quote
Thank
for
you,
that.
Amber. Can you read that? Because I was like, wait a sec.
I don't think he was escaping a girl. I think he was just like, hey,
Well, no.
I'm going to go because I'm not really that interested in you.
So it was
we'll see
like,
what it
it's
says.
literally the first page within the first, 2 paragraphs. Poor Leonora. And yet, I was not to blame. Was it my fault that, whilst the peculiar charms of her sister afforded me an agreeable entertainment, a passion for me was engendered in her feeble heart? And yet, am I wholly blameless? Did I not encourage her emotions?
Ooh. But basically, he really gets into nature, which who doesn't? Nature's amazing. So there's a lot of talk of trees and gardening and things, which I'm like, I track.
Scenery.
I get that. Yeah, I get that. And then he really wants to get into the arts, which also I get that. Like, seems like, he comes from a very higher end family that probably want him to be like a doctor, a lawyer, business executive, whatever. He wants to go into the arts, so he wants to do illustrations and things like that. I get that. So maybe this is his way of I'm escaping what my mom wants me to be, and I'm gonna focus on this art, and I'm gonna just draw what's around me. I totally get that. There's quotes about him really connecting with children, which comes back to I think he's very maybe immature a little bit, which is not bad, but he's very childish.
It's
and-
also really weird because he's always kissing kids, and I'm like, they're not even your kids. What are you doing?
There's
think
a
it's
part.
different in that
Yeah.
era too.
I
But
mean, yeah, but that's also very strange.
I thought it was
I
weird
agree,
too.
it's
He's
weird.
just sitting down and illustrating these random kids that he doesn't know. Which I'm like,
nowadays
that
they'd be
seems
like, call the
weird.
cops.
Yeah, exactly. Again, it's weird because it's okay, this was written in the
There's
1700s.
There's a guy under a tree sketching my children.
Fucking
Yeah.
what the fuck? Yeah. So it's weird like reading it now and you're like, that's fucking weird. Was it supposed to be weird then? I don't know.
Apparently not, because the mom was like about it, and he would give them money and weird shit. And then like later on in the book, she was like, "Oh yeah, the youngest one died."
Mm-hmm.
I know,
Like,
that was really awkward.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like he talks about how he's like friends with everyone. Like I love to hang out with the peasants because they're no different than anyone else. And it's like, but you're still setting them apart.
The tone of it is like, look at me around these peasants. How great am I that I'm around these peasants? You know.
He's very much look at me, and
Yeah.
it bugs me.
But he also kind of identifies with them at the same time.
He does.
I think you have a good point, Sam. It's like he wants to be a part of that town's life, but since he's from a rich family and he's so privileged,
He can't relate.
he can't relate, even though he's trying to a
Mhm.
certain extent. Like, he's not a bad person. I think he just is very ignorant.
Yes.
No,
to a
he
lot of
for sure
things.
is.
Yeah. So he meets a dude that is very infatuated. So, gotta think about the times. I think this guy's a servant.
He is.
Yeah.
And
He's like
she's
a
a widow.
And so she's a
butler type
widow.
thing.
Yeah. So this guy is infatuated with they call her his mistress, but that means that she's paying him to be a servant, basically.
Yeah.
But he's in love with her.
Yeah.
Basically. And so Werther finds him and they have a conversation. He spoke so much of his mistress and praised her so extravagantly that I could soon see he was desperately in love with her. She is no longer young, he said, and she was treated so badly by her former husband that she does not mean to marry again. It's kind of a little blip in the story, but it does come back in the end, I think.
Well, also at the time, I just want to like point out, like, so he's just a servant. He has no title. He has no money. He has nothing. This widow has at least money,
Housing.
Yeah.
and housing. She's got something going on for her, right?
Yeah.
So if she marries this guy, he automatically comes into control of her everything.
Mhm.
And
well,
well,
ulterior motive.
yes.
Maybe he doesn't really love her.
well, I mean, even later in the book, he still continues to say he loves her, whatever, even if she gets, like, after he gets fired and thrown out by her brother, who wants
Yeah.
whatever she has when she dies for his kids. Like, and then she gets a new servant, and it kind of all starts over again. So it's like, well, is she just taking on these male servants to be her love toys, or like,
Good for her. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, girl, do what you gotta do.
I'm just kidding.
I read it a lot differently.
It's a
I
little
read it a lot differently
scandalous
from that, but I
if
like your
others-
perspective.
Well, I mean,
though.
I'm just saying it's scandalous if she did, but like,
yeah.
you know, at that point in time, and it even said that, like, oh well, she's probably going to marry this second servant, whatever, that she hired, even though her brother doesn't like that one either. It's like, well, it's not about her, it's about what she has and who's going to control it.
Yeah.
Which is fucked up because
Yes.
That was very much the time.
well, and
of-
also at that point, she's like, I have all the power, so I'm just gonna. I like your perspective of that because I
Yeah.
didn't even think about that, Sam.
Mhm.
marriage
Because she is
was-
a widow, so that makes a lot of sense.
Marriage was a contract at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was more of a business thing.
Yeah.
Even like we'll get to Charlotte and Albert, or Charlotta, sorry,
Yes.
Charlotte and Albert. That's like a business thing.
Yeah, and
In
certain
this perspective, it's still a business thing.
Yeah.
So the whole thing with the peasant and the widow was an interesting construct.
Yeah.
It definitely comes into play later, which we'll talk about more later. But after that, she meets Charlotta.
Yo,
Or he
let's
meets Charlotta.
talk about Charlotta.
Yeah.
Let's get into their relationship.
Before he even meets her, his aunt is like, "Take care that you do not lose your heart." "Why?" said I. "Because she is already engaged to a very worthy man, who is gone to settle his affairs upon the death of his father, and will succeed to a very considerable inheritance." So, like, he's warned from the get-go not to fall in love with her. And he's like, I won't.
From what it sounds like, that there are many men that have fallen in love with Charlotta.
Maybe.
Mhm.
So it's
think
not
so.
like he's the weirdo. I think she's just very particular, and Albert just happened to be the best match for the time. I don't necessarily know if she loves him or not, but
I do wonder how much is actually... There's other suitors who are just head over heels in love with Charlotta, and how much is perceived by Werther, who is writing this story.
Yes, 100%.
That's fair.
Because a lot of this
Because there were several
book
times where it's
is
like...
written by
eh.
Werther. No, I thought about that too,
Yeah.
Amber.
no, that's
His
completely fair.
point of view is different
It's
than
skewed.
what actual real life is.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. So he goes to her house to pick her up because they have different dates. Like he's going to the ball. They're going to a ball of some sort,
Yeah.
right?
Like a country ball, yeah.
And he has a different date. And she has a different date. But I think that they're both on the way to wherever the ball's happening. So he is picking her up or whatever. So Werther shows up at her house. Charlotte is surrounded by all of her siblings because, again, her mom passed away. So she basically took the
She's
role of her
mothering
mom.
them. Yeah.
Which is a whole other...
And Werther talks
topic.
about
Yeah.
how she's
That I
like
could talk
feeding
about.
bread to her
Yeah,
siblings.
that's their dinner is a fucking
Yeah.
slice of bread.
It's like, well, they
It was
won't.
rye bread.
She was like, they won't take it from anyone else. I
Are
have
they
to give it to them.
birds?
Yeah.
Here's a slice of rye bread, you poor little sad wild feral birds.
But what's
Different
funny
time.
though, is she ends up getting into the carriage with them, and this is what won Werther over. Do you remember this? The aunt inquired of Charlotta whether she had finished the book she had last sent her. No, Charlotta said. I did not like it. You can have it again. And the one before was not much better. She was like, fuck your book. And Werther's like, I love you.
I don't know if it was like, oh, she can read. Sorry.
I just spilt my water all over my boobies
Sorry.
and my book. And my
I was like, okay. He's like, oh, good. She's got like 1 million kids and she can read. Grand.
I mean,
And
that's
these
a
kids
good
aren't
point.
actually
Think about
hers.
the time. Think about the time. I mean,
Mm.
that's funny, but that's actually real.
Mm-hmm.
So
They end up going to this ball.
yeah, they go to the ball.
They go to the ball. And her partner doesn't want to dance with her.
Because they suck at waltzing.
Yeah. So Werther ends up dancing with Charlotta. Do you
Oh,
know
and you
that?
should see Charlotta dance.
You should see her. She's like an angel.
So while they're dancing,
Yeah.
he says, I vowed at that moment that a maiden whom I loved, or for whom I felt the slightest attachment, never should waltz with anyone else but with me.
Mm.
If I went to perdition for it, you will
Barf.
understand this. Dude is like, yeah, he is so possessive.
He's very possessive.
He's
yeah.
like, I danced with her once. She is mine.
Which also, like, the times, but also, like, get a grip on yourself, dude.
Yes.
Fucking shit. And then he's like, who is Albert?
And he
And
knows.
then
I know
Charlotta
he
tells
knows.
him who he is.
Yes.
She is honest with him on that. She's like, he is my fiance, you know.
He's a worthy man to whom I'm engaged.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Like, what else do you want? Like,
Very early on, he could have just been like, oh, this could get messy. I should step back.
I feel like Werther knew what he was doing.
yeah.
He was
I think he did.
intentionally trying to
Yep.
drive a wedge between Albert and Charlotta.
Very subtly.
Yes.
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 He's trying to be friendly with both of them,
And
but
it's-
he was also trying to like manipulate the both of them against each other, I guess, a little bit of a way. Like, well, her against him by implementing him in their relationship so
and
solidly.
it's through his point of view, most of the writing too. So
Yeah.
it's like, this is my, but that's what's interesting is like,
It's all in one. It's a very one-sided
I don't
perspective.
know if Goethe meant for this to be like that, but I read right through that. I was like, yeah, I know exactly what you're doing, you know, and I don't know if that's like a time thing or if that's
I don't know
like
that he meant for it to.
but like we see now, like exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
And that I think goes back to like, okay, this was a romance novel at the time, and now it's like, this is a trauma, like survivalist piece, you know?
But a lot of novels at this point in time, when it comes to like passionate romance, they're like this.
Yeah. What happens next?
His trousers got real tight.
Oh,
They did.
Real tight. Real tight. Yes.
And then shortly after this dance and all this, he goes to pay her a visit, Charlotta, and she's got like a friend over.
Yeah.
Frederica. And she's got her beau, Herr Schmidt, or something like
Okay,
this.
no. So what happens is Charlotta goes to visit an ailing woman. That is when they meet
Frederica
and Herr Schmidt.
But while they're there, Werther keeps talking about how beautiful Frederica is.
Yeah.
He makes a comment, and he like takes up all of her time and is talking to her, and Herr Schmidt kind of gets a little pissed about it.
Irritated, yeah.
He does that intentionally, though, and not just because he thinks she's actually like pretty. He does it intentionally because Herr Schmidt has like such a just shitty attitude.
Yeah, Herr
about
Schmidt
him.
is not great either.
So Werther just like makes an assumption that this guy's boring or something, and starts berating her with attention.
Yeah.
And
Charlotte's like, hey.
yeah,
like,
Charlotte
reel it
is
back a little
having to
bit.
be like, hey dude.
Yeah.
Which was really weird to me. So the entire time I read this book, I'm not gonna lie, I viewed Werther very much as a villain the entirety of the book.
Yeah.
Just based on early things that he said and did, I'm like, this guy.
Same. I did not think of him as like someone that I would sympathize with.
No, I didn't feel sympathy for him. And I think that's a lot to do with the fact that we're modern women and we don't put up with this shit.
I think, funnily enough, what he's talking about here, like in this quote, he kind of foreshadows himself, because he says, is not ill humor in fact our own inner displeasure at our own unworthiness, a feeling of discontent with ourselves, which is always related to envy, which in turn is stirred up by foolish vanity?
Yeah, that's very much foreshadowing.
Yeah, we see people who are happy and whose happiness is not our making, and we cannot stand it. So he's also upset about the fact that she seems to appear to be happy, like Charlotta appear to be happy, and it's not because of him.
I also wanted to point out, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but so Werther's all like, I love children and like whatever, and he
Stop kissing children.
He felt very connected with, Charlotta's siblings. There's a point where he ends up kissing
her heartily.
Jane, one of Charlotta's siblings, on the cheek. So here is this. The affection and simplicity with which this was uttered so charmed me. I guess she said something to him, and he was like overwhelmed.
She told him no, Charlotta must drink first whenever they offered water. That's all that was.
It's like the affection and simplicity with which this was uttered so charmed me that I sought to express my feelings by catching up the child and kissing her heartily. She was frightened and began to cry. You should not do that, said Charlotta. I felt perplexed. Come, Jane, she continued, taking her hand and leading her down the steps again. It is no matter. Wash yourselves quickly in the fresh water. I stood and watched them, and when I saw the little deer rubbing her cheeks with her wet hands in full belief that all the impurities contracted from my ugly beard will be washed off by the miraculous water, and how, though Charlotta said it would do, she continued still to wash with all her might, as though she thought too much were better than too little. So it's like, obviously, they didn't like that you kissed her on the cheek.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable.
Like,
It was really weird.
His boundaries are fucked up.
They are.
They are, very much so, because he has, like, literally no boundaries with Charlotta either.
No.
He keeps pushing them.
Well, and then there's this thing, and again, this is where I wonder how much of it is truth and how much of it is his fictionalized version of the truth.
Mm-hmm.
During our walk, I thought I saw in Charlotta's dark eyes, I am a fool, but forgive me. You should see them, those eyes. And then he starts talking about these guys that they had, like, hung out with. They are a merry set of fellows, and they were all laughing and joking together. I watched Charlotta's eyes. They wandered from one to the other, but they did not light on me, who stood there motionless and who saw nothing but her. So again, like, she's just hanging out with some people. Like, there's 3 or 4 guys, and she's talking to all of them like a normal fucking human person does.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I was staring at her, and she didn't look at me at all. It's like, no, because she's fucking engaged in conversation, bro.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about Werther's relationship with Albert. It's weird because he, like, befriends him, but he's also very jealous of him.
Incredibly
he has
so.
Charlotta, but then I think he just wants to be him, kind of, too.
Yeah.
I think at first Albert is like, oh, let's be friends. And then he's realizing that Werther is basically trying to weasel his way in.
But he's still friendly to him.
Yeah, but he's also a gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Albert, honestly, like, he's very...
I also feel like he's like, I've got this, like, I've got this in the bag. I've got the job.
Yeah.
I got the money. Like, the mom was like, oh, you know, you're going to marry her and do-ba-do-ba-do. Like, he doesn't have to worry about it.
Sterile is what I would say. Like, he's
yeah.
very like, okay, that is the person that I would like to marry. Very on the surface, good.
Mm-hmm.
But then after a while, not great, because it's like, okay, well, yeah, you have this life, you're providing me a home and everything, but you're not providing me all that I want, kind of thing, you know? So I think I don't think Albert was ever a bad guy. I think he just was not emotionally available for Charlotta, you know, as Werther was.
I also feel like he got put in a kind of a rock and a hard place because the mom was like, oh, you're going to get married, but you're also going to have to raise all the rest of my children.
He had interesting aspects to him. I think the most interesting, but we don't see a lot of story from him because he kind of avoids.
Yeah. Well, and also this is all from Werther's perspective.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think Werther kind of avoids Albert. And tries
to be him,
sneak in his
he does.
Like visits when he's not around. So
the most interesting conversation I remember in the entire book is when Albert in the entire book rather involving Albert, is the conversation between Albert and Werther about the guns. And Werther's like, oh yeah, those are cool pistols or whatever. And he's like, oh, I haven't the stomach for them anymore, or whatever the fuck he says, because one of my maids was cleaning them, and it went off, and it shot her right through the thumb.
Yeah. No, there's a whole interaction. That was their first
big chat.
Interaction was like, oh, Albert was like, I don't let my guns have bullets in them.
Yes.
Because
they're not loaded.
One of my maids got shot in the hand because of a servant.
Yeah.
It wasn't even her. She wasn't cleaning it. Someone shot her in the hand.
Yeah, because they were fucking around.
No, someone else. A boy was cleaning
male servant.
A servant was cleaning it and shot her in the hand.
Because he was like fucking around trying to show off.
But that's why that conversation was so long, because it comes back in the end.
And then they talked. Oh, shortly after the Pistol's conversation with the maid shattering her thumb was something about suicide, and they had like a weird conversation about, because Albert says, well, we were speaking of suicide, which you compare with great actions. When it is impossible to regard it as anything but a weakness, it is much easier to die than to bear a life of misery with fortitude. So like dated. Yeah. But I will tell you that I tend to side with Werther on this.
Yeah.
With this. Not because I think that people should commit suicide.
No.
I hope that they don't. But because
there's other ways to regulate that.
There are other ways. There's coping mechanisms that can be taught, and there are things that we can learn.
And the way that Albert is processing it is like, just suppress it.
Yes.
Werther is more like, no, express it, but he's extreme.
He is very
like,
extreme.
Okay, you could express it, but you could do it in a way that's not harmful to yourself.
Well, and I think viewing suicide as a weakness is a very negative way to view things.
Oh, yeah.
Because there is a lot of strength in people with depression. And so, unfortunately, when the people who lose their battle with suicide finally do lose it, I think that it's usually that they have faced every day as bravely as they possibly can and just can't keep going anymore. So I think this is a really great excerpt on that. Sure, Werther comes off as a little unhinged.
Yeah.
But also, this is probably one of my favorite passages as far as mental health considerations goes for this particular book.
It's literally between someone that's going through something and someone that has no idea what they're going through. Yeah.
And so this is maybe the most sane thing that I feel like Werther maybe says in the entire book. Because he's very unhinged most of it. He's obsessive. He's very passionate to a point that's kind of like, whoa.
And Albert's trying to talk to him, but he can't be on his level because
he can't fathom what it's like.
Yeah.
Or maybe he can, but he just doesn't fully.
I don't think he can, honestly.
Even if he could, I don't know.
I think that
perspectives.
They are intentionally so completely different for just the dichotomy of the human experience. And Albert he's a lawyer, he does all that stuff, so he's very much rule abiding by the book. He is not emotional, whereas Werther is like, I'm an emotional wreck and you're all gonna hear about it. So I think it's just kind of like they're there to play off of each other about just like human emotion.
Yes, I agree with that.
So, like, playing off that, he takes himself off because he cannot stand to be around Charlotte anymore.
I'm leaving.
And he's going to go work for the judge, minister, ambassador.
Yes.
And he is a whiny bitch because he suddenly can't do anything right. Well, he can't do anything up to someone else's standards.
He's just being a weak ass bitch.
Yeah.
Well, what? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying he is a weak ass bitch.
Thank you for agreeing with me.
Yeah.
Well, like the whole thing with him and the ambassador is he's constantly returning my papers to me saying they will do, but recommending me to look over them again, as one may always improve by using a better word or a more appropriate particle. And then I lose all patience and wish myself at the devils. Which is very fucking dramatic.
It's like, what fucking person that either does speeches for a living or does writing for a living doesn't have that?
Yeah.
Well, and I was listening and I was
you
like...
don't get it right on the first go, guy.
Right. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, but like...
How is this abnormal?
He's giving you constructive criticism and you're like, I wish I was at the devils.
Yeah.
Well, this is the
Me
thing.
the devils. Fuck.
He's a narcissist. He cannot do no wrong in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
So when if someone gives him some critical
feedback of any kind
or whatever,
but
he's like, oh, I can't live with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's how this is. He's a privileged asshole.
I know.
That's what this is about.
It was so irritating though, because I was just like, he literally said they're fine, but you can improve upon them in the future. Like, just take the fucking word at what it is and like move on with your day and do better next time.
And
like,
what's
no
really interesting is this whole thing was like they went to some banquet or something, and he overstepped his bounds and talked to someone that he shouldn't have talked to.
Well,
and then people were like, oh hey, you shouldn't do that. And he's like, okay, I'm just gonna leave. And then like 2 days later, he talked to someone else, and they're like, well, we heard, and he's like, well, that's not what happened. Oh, and he's trying to like flip it around in his mind, you know? But it's like, no, you were out of line. Take responsibility for yourself.
Well, exactly.
But in all this writing, he does not do that.
Well, no, he doesn't. But to come to his rescue in that situation, he was invited by the Count, and he was going to take his leave. And when that family showed up, that was like, oh no. And he ended up staying and talking to Miss B, which he unfortunately likened her to Charlotta and would not shut the fuck up about Charlotta to her. And he's probably
being unprofessional.
He probably could have fucking moved on with her.
Yeah.
And had a relationship with her.
No, he was being fucking creepy.
So
but he was being fucking weird.
Fucking creepy. What?
Actually. I did some Googling on this because I was like, what fucking happened at that party? Because I didn't fully understand. Like, I understood there was some kind of a faux pas.
I did too. I was like,
but I was like, what? What fucking happened? Here's what happened. Miss B is above his station.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes. And he, Mr. Big for his britches, decides to kind of go over there and tootle up to her and have like completely like
I remember this part.
He was too familiar with her.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think he could have moved on with her because again, she was above his station. Now, had he worked his ass off and done like, I don't know, the job he was assigned to do, maybe if he'd have like risen to a new station.
Maybe. Yeah.
But he hadn't, and so he got himself, like, he embarrassed himself at a party.
Yeah.
Very badly.
And the Count was like, hey man, like, I don't think that they want you here anymore. He's like, oh, I was taking my leave anyway. Bye, I didn't want to be here anymore. Which I thought was, like, the Count was kind of like, well, I'm glad that you realize that you didn't want to be here because you fucking embarrassed yourself, bro.
Yeah. Well, he was supposed to leave and then she showed up. And
that Count ended up giving him money or something.
No, it wasn't the Count.
Or was it a different
the prince.
It's the prince.
Oh, yeah. But anyway.
That was a whole fucking fiasco, too. Like,
he's insufferable.
I want to join the military. Bitch, when did you think you ever had
he,
any fortitude to join the military?
He always thinks that he should just...
That was a dramatic thing.
He's very
And the prince was like, yeah, no.
As someone who almost joined the military for dramatic reasons.
No, I want to talk about that. Like, he literally wanted to join the army and got talked out of it. Thank goodness is what my notes said. Thank God, because he would not have lasted in the army, I don't think.
Probably not.
No.
But
because he doesn't like other people telling him what to do.
Yeah.
He's very entitled.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Werther's insufferable.
And then the prince he was like, oh, I can't be here anymore.
And then he decides to go back to see Charlotta after that, right?
Before that, he starts writing to her again.
Oh, okay.
Remember? Because I remember there's a point where I was like, okay, he's doing his own thing. Oh no, he's writing to her, and I was like,
did you really think it was the end?
Did you drunk text her? Did you drunk call her? Like,
yes, he did.
I drunk wrote a letter and put it in the post box.
Don't do that. She's
too late.
over you. Please don't.
Oh God. So anyway, imagine that you're trashed and you suddenly, and you suddenly feel the need
singing a song for
to
you
send an angry drunk text to a man.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens within seconds.
Right now.
Yeah, right now. It happens right now.
Sam is doing it right now.
Now imagine
too late
that you live in the 1700s.
Already done.
And you write a drunk letter and walk it to the fucking post office.
You gotta send it out?
But you wouldn't, because they would be fucking closed.
Yeah.
You gotta
wait. So you had to do it the next day.
And you have to wait for it to dry.
And I'm just saying.
The wax on the letter stamp.
the ink would have to dry because you had to put fucking sand on it,
and then seal it with the wax.
Seal it with the wax, and that's gotta dry. And then you gotta walk your ass down to the fucking post office when it's open.
That thing is gonna take
I'm just
a month.
saying.
And then it's gotta go right on a pony to God knows where.
That took a lot of effort. He's very dramatic.
He's so fucking whiny. You're
so,
like, God dang.
I do want to say, I don't know what page it is, but on February 20th, Charlotta and Albert get married. Or at least that's when Werther finds out that they get married.
Well, he like keeps her picture. He has like a picture up and he was like, I was gonna take it down.
I love that they did not invite him to their wedding. Like,
I wouldn't.
Well, and that was the thing too. But that was the thing too, that I was like, okay, like, how much of this is in your head?
Yeah, well, I mean, okay.
Oh, here we
so
go.
he kind of made it out to seem like Albert was like his friend, even though he had weird feelings about it. So maybe he expected, since he expected her to tell him when they were getting married, I think is really what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And Albert was probably like, don't fucking tell that fucking weirdo. We don't need him here causing a ruckus.
Okay, so he wrote her a letter. Here is an excerpt. You are now united, and her picture still remains here. Well, let it remain. Why should it not? I know that I am still one of your society, that I still occupy a place uninjured in Charlotta's heart, that I hold the second place therein, and I intend to keep it. That sounds threatening.
Sounds like he's a little insane.
Yeah.
This is when he starts getting, like, fucking hateful.
Dear Wilhelm, my whole frame feels convulsed when I see Albert put his arms around her slender waist. And shall I avow it? Why should I not, Wilhelm? She would have been happier with me than him.
How do you know?
Exactly.
That's I actually yelled that at one point when during the
No,
audio
there
book.
were
I was
many
like, you
times
don't
where I'm
fucking
like,
know that. You're just deluding yourself.
Fuck you, Werther!
What do you have that's better than him?
Yep.
Yes.
And then there's this really disgusting excerpt from September 3rd that pissed me off really bad.
September 3rd, okay.
I sometimes cannot understand how she can love another, how she dares love another, when I love nothing in this world so completely, so devotedly as I love her, when I know only her and have no other possession.
Yep. Because it's a possession.
Ugh.
You gotta
He
possess her.
Also never actually possessed
I remember highlighting
her.
that too.
Never.
Yeah.
I didn't just highlight it, I fucking underlined it because it made me so fucking mad.
There's a lot of this that I don't know if you guys watched the show You on Netflix.
Yes.
He reminded me a lot
I could see that.
of him in like a modern age where he's like very obsessive and like, oh, well, you made me do this. You made me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to give away anything from the show because it's actually a pretty good show, honestly. It's pretty good. But he is not a good person.
No.
And he literally, like, in his mind, creates this fantasy that
It's a false narrative.
possesses that girl.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was like, this is that person. This is like the modern day, like, this is you. It's fucked up.
I liked the excerpt from September 5th, and it's like, she had written a note to her husband, who was in the country attending to some business. It began, "My dearest love, come home as soon as you can. I am filled with joy at the thought of your return. A friend who stopped by brought word that for a number of reasons Albert would not be returning so soon. The note was left lying there, and that evening I had chanced upon it. I read it and smiled. She asked what I was smiling at. What a divine gift imagination is, I exclaimed. For one moment I tricked myself into thinking it was addressed to me. She broke off what she was doing and looked displeased, and I was silent. It's like, first off, you are reading something that's not even for you. So rude.
Yeah.
And second off, like, why are you being weird? Like, so
Exactly.
weird. And it's like, that just made her so uncomfortable. Like, he's just like continually being more and more uncomfortable towards her. And the further you get in the book, it talks more about how she just looks at him with like this pitying look, and I'm like, yeah, girl, but you should run.
Yeah.
She gets a bird for her kid, her children, her siblings, whatever. Children's siblings.
Children's.
Yes, the children's.
Chiblins.
And she's like, hey, look at this bird. Isn't it cool? It does like these things and it gives me a kiss. And she peckers up and it gives her a kiss. And she's like, it'll kiss you too. And he's like, okay. And so the bird kisses him, and then he's all bitching about the bird kissing him. He's like, his kiss is not wholly free of desire. He wants food, and these empty endearments leave him dissatisfied. Obviously talking about himself. And she's like, oh, well, he'll eat out of my mouth too, which is fucking weird. Why are you doing that?
I thought that was weird too.
Birds are disgusting, and I love my birds, but they are dirty.
Yeah, I'm
dirty
not gonna let them
creatures.
touch me with their
Like, why
mouths.
would she
I'm not
do
gonna
that?
really.
Yeah.
I might pet the chickens, but then I'm gonna go wash my hands
No,
very
she's
thoroughly.
she's being kind of sexual towards him right now.
Yeah, it's a little risque, but she's like, he'll eat off of my mouth too, and she offered it a few crumbs on her lips, and she smiled with all joyful happiness of innocent and loving fellow feeling, while this bird like takes the crumbs from her lips / mouth, and then he gets all fucking weird about it. I was like, I averted my gaze. She ought not to do it, ought not to excite my imagination with these scenes of divine innocence and bliss, or awaken my heart from that sleep with indifference of life. Loza too, and why not? She has such trust in me and knows how much I love her. Okay, weirdo. Calm down. It's a fucking canary.
Our
Eating
translations
seeds.
are different.
Yeah. I've noticed that because I was listening to the audiobook, and it's different than my book.
Yes.
Well, I wonder what mine is.
Mine says, she should not act thus.
Yes.
Which is so dramatic.
She should not act thus.
Yeah. So he's like slut shaming her for like having a bird eat some seeds out of her mouth.
Mine says,
to me,
I don't
it's
know.
weird.
It's weird.
Well, I don't even know. I don't think I have the right thing, but my paragraph says, I turned my face away. She should not act. Yeah, she should not act thus. She ought to not excite my imagination with such displays of heavenly innocence and happiness, nor awaken my heart from its slumbers in which it dreams of the worthiness of life. And why not? Because she knows how much I love her.
All because
Lord,
of some
so
fucking
dramatic.
seeds and a canary.
Yeah, it's like,
That is
Jesus,
my acting
guy.
right there. I'm done with acting.
And scene.
And seeds.
I love her. There's one paragraph I wanted to know what you guys thought about it. It's on November 3rd. I don't know what page it is. I am alone, the cause of my own woe. Am I not? Truly, my own bosom contains the source of all my sorrow, as it previously contained the source of all my pleasure. Am I not the same being who once enjoyed an access of happiness, who at every step saw paradise open before him, and whose heart was ever expanded toward the whole world? And this heart is now dead. No sentiment can revive it. My eyes are dry, and my senses no more refreshed by the influence of soft tears, wither and consume my brain.
This is like one of the very few places that he doesn't place blame on someone else for
And he
his
even
condition.
questions himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the most self-aware, most
Mhm.
clarity he probably has the entire time he's
Mhm.
writing.
Mm.
And yeah, it is depression. And I really wish that at the time there was, I don't know, treatment that wasn't cocaine or, you know, ghosts in your blood.
Yeah. Yeah. Just do cocaine about it.
Just do cocaine about it.
Yeah.
I'm just really stoked about ghosts in the blood.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's my problem.
It's a good quote.
And there's a lot going on. And here's the thing. He's a good writer.
He is.
He's very good. There's so much that we
barely scratched the surface
this book
of this.
that we've like kind of skim across. Because
Yeah.
we can't do a lot in this episode.
Even though it's only like 100 some odd pages.
Like
It's
if we
very
had to
poetic.
actually, I would love to do a class where you actually dissected this fucking goddamn book. Honestly, I would like that because I'm a fucking goddamn nerd. But
Well, we should
we
have
don't
taken my
have the
class
time
that I
to do that.
avoided.
I would have loved that.
I think I was the only
Sam
one that
and
enjoyed
Lauren
it
in the
too.
back.
Yeah, we're broing out over here.
Sam and Lauren in the back with a beer.
But
That professor was
mean,
pretty cool too.
There's just so much in this writing that like I had to reread a lot of these paragraphs, and then sometimes I had to be like, okay, I'm overthinking things, let me whatever go through them, and then other times I'm like, okay, I need to triple read these things, you know.
I think I've actually have enjoyed it more now too that we've been discussing it.
Yeah,
I always like books a little better with discussion. I think just even books that I loved in the first place, getting the perspective of the other people is really entertaining for me because I'm like, oh yeah, I hadn't considered that.
and that's also what I love about this podcast is like there's things that I have not picked up on other books that we've read or this book that I'm like, oh shit,
It's
I
just
didn't
a
even
different
think about
point of view.
that,
Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yep.
He's still a whiny bitch.
Oh yeah, she definitely is. Sam.
Yeah, like
Sam.
almost every time that I read something, I'm like, come the fuck on, guy. So
Was this you in your 20s?
Maybe I was a whiny bitch, but I think I kept
You've
it more
grown.
to myself.
You've grown.
I definitely kept it more internalized than this.
Yes. No, I totally get it though.
the very next passage on November 8th is maybe the one time where I'm like, all right, Charlotta, were you actually... Is there a little bit of like mischief in you that I didn't catch? I wondered a couple times.
I think she has a little inkling of joy in it.
Okay, in my mind, I think that originally it was like a friend thing.
Yeah.
A friend thing. And we'll get into it later. But I think after what happens, she was like questioning things.
Mm.
We gotta talk about where they're meeting a crazy man that was looking for flowers. Do you know that part?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was like really odd.
Because that's a different guy.
It was odd, but it was also like,
We need to talk about that.
oh.
He observed a man in the distance in a tattered coat, wandering among the rocks,
Yes.
who seemed to be looking for plants. He's like, what's going on? What are you seeking? He replied with a deep sigh that he was looking for flowers and could find none. But it is not the season, I observed with a smile. Oh, there are so many flowers, he answered as he came nearer to me. In my garden there are roses and honeysuckles of two sorts. Yeah,
Why didn't he just tell him, why don't you go back to your own garden and
yeah, I know.
if there's flowers there, sir, what are you doing out here?
Yeah, what are you doing wandering amongst the rocks
Mm-hmm.
where plants don't
Yep.
typically grow? But then I guess his mom comes out, and so they have like they exchange pleasantries or whatever, and you know, Werther's like, is that your son? And she's like, yep.
Show enough.
But then
And then she tells him that he was for one whole year quite raving and chained down in a madhouse.
Just
Now
tell
he
strangers
int-
that. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, right? Now he injures no one, but talks of nothing else than kings and queens. He used to be a very good, quiet youth, and helped to maintain me. He wrote a very fine hand, but all at once he became melancholy, was seized with a violent fever, grew distracted, and is now as you see. If I were only to tell you, sir, I interrupted her by asking... She's getting ready to talk, and he's like, hey, what period in which did he boast of having been so happy? Poor boy, she exclaimed with a smile of compassion. He means the time when he was completely deranged. A time he never ceases to regret, when he was in the madhouse and unconscious of everything.
Yeah, well,
Which I was like, that was sad to me.
But then It says, Wilhelm, the man about whom I wrote to you, that man so enviable in his misfortunes, was secretary to Charlotte's father. So apparently he was also
In love with Charlotta.
Yes.
Supposedly.
Everyone is in love with Charlotte.
That's why I'm like, girl is just a player.
What is going on, girl? I mean, maybe she's not doing something. She's just doing her thing.
Maybe she's just
hot.
really hot, yeah.
She's as hot as hell. Who knows? But
once again, it is from one man's perspective.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
And his assumptions are just it's like he's just going around making wild assumptions.
Yeah. Which what happens with assumptions?
Makes
it makes an ass out of you and me.
That's right.
And then we get to the Etita to the Ritter section, which I thought was very interesting. When that happened, I was like, oh, hold up.
You're like, is this part of the book still?
No, I knew it was,
okay.
But I'm like, oh, that's cool. Because it switches the perspective from Werther to
Wilhelm.
I
liked this part because it explained things more in depth in a way that Werther wasn't conveying during his letters.
Yeah.
It just was like, oh, okay, there was more happening.
Definitely in a way it's a little bit more, not clinical, but a little bit more matter of fact. I also liked a lot how much this portion of the book told about more Charlotte, but like Albert and Charlotte's like way of dealing with things.
Yes. There was something about like basically he made his interpretations based on having conversations with people.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. So he tried to remain neutral, I think.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is this is all derived from Goethe. So it's not even like real events, but it comes out as like a true crime thing.
Kind of.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Kind of.
It's interesting.
So let's talk a little bit about Albert's relationship with Werther.
Yeah.
According to...
It was complicated.
Yes, to Wilhelm.
It was very complicated. In ways, Werther really liked him, but in ways he really hated him because he was the person that he wanted to be because he was with Charlotte. Yeah. I don't think it was because he was Albert. I think it was because he was with Charlotte.
Because she was a prize to him.
Yes.
Not necessarily a person. It was just a belonging.
Well, and I guess Albert was leaving because he kind of sensed Werther's feelings toward him, and rather than further agitate him, he was like leaving the apartment during their visits. So it was just Charlotte and Werther. Which is also weird and inappropriate at that time for a single woman to be alone with a single man. I don't know, she wasn't a single woman, though. She was a married woman. But even before they were married, they were both seemingly alone together. Oh, true. So, the peasant that was in love with his mistress, or the servant, whatever you want to call him. Servant. Who was in love with his mistress, killed the new servant, murdered them, and Werther does what?
He has sympathy for him and goes to court to like try to
be his like defense lawyer.
Defend him, yeah.
I will defend your honor.
Yep.
The judge was just like,
"You're crazy, be gone."
He basically was like, dude, you shouldn't be doing this. Yeah. You're going to get yourself into some shit. Stop. Yep. The vain attempt Werther had made to save the unhappy murderer was the last feeble glimmering of a flame about to be extinguished. Destitute of energy, he was cut off from every pursuit and occupation which composed the business of common life, and he became a victim to his own susceptibility and to his restless passion for the most amiable and beloved of women, whose peace he destroyed. We find it difficult to express the emotions with which Charlotte's soul was agitated during the whole of this time, whether in relation to her husband or to her unfortunate friend, although we are enabled by our knowledge of her character to understand their nature. It is certain that she had formed a determination by every means in her power to keep Werther at a distance, and if she hesitated in her decision, it was from a sincere feeling of friendly pity, knowing how much it would cost him, indeed, that he would find it almost impossible to comply with her wishes.
Yep. You could tell she knew that he was struggling, and she did not know how to help him.
Well,
But when and why does she have to take responsibility for his emotions?
I think that relationships can be really complicated
Oh, yeah.
to end, especially whenever one of the parties is in such a volatile state.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, like, the decisions people make
Around them.
are their own. Like, you can't affect that, and you can't make choices based on what somebody else wants for the rest of your life.
I think he was a dick because she kept telling him no, 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 and he kept pushing boundaries and whatever. So, like, I can see how she would be kind of feeling stuck in that situation. But I also feel like sometimes she kind of just let him on or just allowed him to do all these crazy things, and she's not the one that is responsible for his emotions.
No. So he's very bad at respecting boundaries, and she's very bad at setting boundaries.
She's definitely not innocent, but I think out of all the people, I feel the most for her.
Yeah.
Because in the end, we'll get to it. But
I feel the most sorry for Wilhelm because he has to listen to all this drivel.
And Wilhelm gets to compound this bullshit.
Poor Wilhelm. He's just like, damn it.
So he goes to her and he starts reading. I don't know if you researched this, Amber. I know Sam didn't because we talked about it. The Ossian poem. Do you know anything about that? Yeah, I went through it. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this is.
They read like a long ass poem, and I was just like, I'm done.
But anyway, so Werther goes to see her before Christmas, even though Charlotte said, don't see me before Christmas, but he does anyway, and he reads her some kind of poem from Ossian.
The whole force of these words fell upon the unfortunate Werther. Full of despair, he threw himself at Charlotte's feet, seized her hands, and then pressed them to his eyes and to his forehead. Her senses were bewildered. She held his hands, pressed them to her bosom, and leaning toward him with emotions of the tenderest pity, because that's what I want to see on someone's face is pity. Her warm cheek touched his. They lost sight of everything. The world disappeared from their eyes. He clasped her, and his arms strained her to his bosom, and covered her trembling lips with passionate kisses. Werther, she cried with a faint voice, turning herself away. Werther! And with a feeble hand, she pushed him from her.
God, imagine having to say that name in bed.
Charlotte rose, and with a disordered grief and mingled tones of love and resentment, she exclaimed, "It is the last time, Werther. You shall never see me any more." Then, casting one last tender look upon her unfortunate lover, she rushed into the adjoining room and locked the door.
At length, he tore himself from the place, crying, "Adieu, Charlotta! Adieu forever!"
Adieu forever!
So dramatic.
Leaves.
So basically, he writes all these letters, and then he ends up dressing himself in the suit that he danced at the ball with Charlotte with.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has a servant go to Charlotte and Albert's house to request pistols because he said he was going on a trip.
The note says, "Be so good as to lend me your pistols for a journey. Adieu."
"Give him the pistols. I wish him a pleasant journey," he added, turning to the servant. These words fell upon Charlotte like a thunderstroke. She rose from her seat, half fainting, and unconscious of what she did. She walked mechanically toward the wall took down the pistols with a trembling hand, slowly wiped the dust from them, and would have delayed longer had not Albert hastened her movements by an impatient look. She then delivered the fatal weapons to the servant without being able to utter a word. So there's more that goes on, but basically she knew what she was doing, which is kind of problematic.
Well, he also is probably very sick of Werther at this point, too.
Oh, I'm fucking sure
So
of
he's
it.
like, ugh, this fucking guy.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't think he knew. Like, she knew what was going on, but he
I
did
wonder
not.
if he didn't.
I
wonder if he didn't know what was up.
He seemed kind of vacant, but I don't know.
But
Given
even
the
Charlotte
pistols,
definitely knew what was going on.
even the most aloof people can still be observant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the last time they talked about the pistols, what did he do?
Yeah.
So, as far as Charlotta's perspective goes, I mean, this is a woman who basically just committed adultery, whether it was fully intentional or not.
Yeah.
It still happened, and in that day and age,
Not good.
yikes.
Not great.
So, handing over the pistols kind of reprieves her of having to tell anybody of this.
Right, true.
That's not great, though.
It's not. It's still problematic.
No,
It's
I definitely
still-
had something, like, I was, like, on her side for a while, and I'm like,
This is the one time where I was like, dude, that's fucked.
yeah.
Come on, Charlotta.
Yeah,
I didn't even
definitely.
think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the morning, at 6 o'clock, the servant went into Werther's room with a candle. He found his master stretched upon the floor, weltering in his blood, and the pistols at his side. He took him in his arms, but received no answer. Life was not yet quite extinct. The servant ran for a surgeon, and then went to fetch Albert. So then Albert and Charlotta went to the house. The house, the neighborhood, and the whole town were immediately in commotion. Albert arrived. They had laid Werther on the bed. His head was bound, and the paleness of death was upon his face. His limbs were motionless, but he still breathed, at one time strongly, then weaker. His death was momently expected.
Basically, Werther had shot himself. Is what happened to Werther.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't kill himself. So he was literally laying on the floor dying the whole night.
Yeah.
Which is very sad.
It is very sad.
At 12 o'clock, Werther breathed his last. The steward and his sons followed the corpse to the grave. Albert was unable to accompany them. Charlotta's life was despaired of. The body was carried by laborers. No priest attended. And that's how the book ends.
Life was despaired of. I didn't know what that meant, so I had to look it up. Do you guys know what that means? Charlotta's life was despaired of. Do you guys know what that means?
I think she just could not figure out how to live after that.
It says...
Honestly.
Oh, they thought that she was going to kill herself.
Yeah, it means someone's situation was so dire or so hopeless that it was considered likely they would not survive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I knew it was something not great.
Yeah.
I really like the last 70% of the book to the end. That was like, holy shit. Like, I liked a lot of the book, but that was like, oh my God. You could really tell the escalation. But then the description of his death was very visceral, and then that's what happened. Everyone moved on. I was like, damn.
But isn't that what life is like?
Yeah. Very realistic.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
I didn't love reading it, but I did really enjoy getting to discuss it with you guys.
See, I liked the movie.
We're going to get into that. I'm going to take a pee break. And then we're going to do the movie adaptation stuff.
Yes.
AKA The Diaries of the Sad Boy.
Which is aptly named.
Right.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, Ellen.
Again. Okay, so I have a couple tidbits before the movie adaptation.
Okay.
So, I thought Sam would like this.
Mm.
There was an opera written in 18 1892 titled Werther, based off the novel. Have you heard about that?
Mm-mm.
You being an opera connoisseur, I would guess.
An opera connoisseur.
I could probably name you like one opera.
You're an opera person.
Carmen.
So.
Okay, maybe two.
Ooh, there we go.
Phantom of the Opera.
I was thinking the Baba of Seville
Oh, there
and
you go.
Madame Butterfly were the only.
Here's the
two
thing,
ones
Amber.
I could think of.
Mm-hmm.
Sam will always be classier than us.
I know.
Because she's
Why?
Sam.
I'm
Because
just like,
you're
why?
Sam.
You're well educated.
Yes.
You're probably the most well educated person at this table, Sam.
I think so. I concur.
I also have the worst hair right now.
No.
I love your hair.
Not at all.
It's insane.
I love your hair.
I
What
love
you
it.
fucking
It
talking about,
needs
girl?
to be fixed.
All right, ready? In Mary Shelley's Frankenstein's monster finds this book in a leather portmanteaus. In a leather portmanteaus. What the hell does that mean?
Portmanteau.
Portmanteau.
It's like a briefcase.
I was gonna say.
Thanks, Sam, the most educational person here. Okay.
Ah.
Along
It's
with
like
two
luggage.
others.
Yeah, basically.
Plutarch's Lives of the Noble Greeks and the Romans and Milton's Paradise Lost. He sees Werther's case as similar to his own, of one rejected by those he loved. There was a 1986 Spanish movie adaptation called Werther. There is a 2010 semi-biographical, mostly fictional though, movie called Goethe, focusing on the love triangle between Goethe, Charlotte Bouffe, and her fiance Kessner. So it's basically like
the real version.
Yeah.
how
that came the
that
whole
came
entire
to be. Yeah.
theme
Yeah.
of the
It's
book.
kind of like the Finding Neverland of, you know.
Gotcha.
Amber knows what's up.
I do know what's up.
I know what Finding
All
Neverland.
right, this one you guys would know.
Mm.
Maybe, I think, because you're gamers. You ready?
Maybe.
In the 2015 game, The Witcher 3
Mhm.
Wild Hunts Blood and Wine expansion pack,
Mhm.
there's
is
a
it?
treasure hunt
The Witcher
called The
3
Suffering
Wild Hunt.
of Young Francois, where a man named Francois seeks help from a witch to make a woman named Charlotte, who is engaged to Albert, fall in love with him. Do you guys play that?
Yes.
You remember that?
Yeah.
I knew you would. I didn't know about Amber.
Yeah,
but
that's
I
not
knew-
one.
I was
that
like, this
I've
is
played.
Sam
Yeah.
put it right
Is
here.
It's in there now
it-
that I'm thinking about it.
I put the opera in for Sam,
I dig it.
and I put this in for Sam. So
She's
you're
more worldly than us.
welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, so worldly.
So worldly. And now for a debut presentation of Young Werther, which is the movie that we all watched. Apparently, this is the thing that we do because I don't know if you guys realized, but when The Color Purple came out and we were recording the episode,
Yeah.
we watched that movie the same month that it came out. And this fucking goddamn thing happened with this one.
Yeah.
And it's the same month, December.
I think it's just some lucky duck bullshit is what it is.
I don't know, but either way, Sam had already said she wanted to do this as her episode, and then we were Googling, and I'm like, wait, this
There's
is
a
coming out
movie.
this fucking month. So anyway, we watched this together. It's called Young Werther, and it's a modernized version of The Sorrows of Young Werther.
I liked it.
I was very pleasantly surprised because after reading the book, I was like, I'm just gonna watch this movie about this whiny fucking dude.
The movie
Yeah.
version of Werther is more charming, though.
He's
than
very
the book
charming.
Version.
Yeah.
And-
well, and I think they purposely did that because they're trying to modernize it
Yeah.
in a way.
I also-
like he's still annoying. He's
Yeah,
very
but in a, like a
annoying.
goofy, cutesy kind of way. But I also feel like they played, they took Charlotte's character and made her more like sexually interested in Werther besides like a friendship. So they like force
yeah.
that more than
There's
what the book
definitely
says.
more like sexual tension than in the book, which I get.
Mhm.
I get that. But it was done in a very for a rom-com, there was no sex, which is interesting.
Yeah.
in my perspective. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
That was
And
nice.
then-
It was actually kind of a nice change.
It was like
the
very subdued.
soundtrack was very good.
The soundtrack was good.
The fucking filming of it was really good. Like
that guy dancing was amazing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that guy.
It was just really pretty too, especially when they're at like the club, like the whole ambiance and everything they did was just like a very nice, like I'm always attracted to like color, like really pretty, colorful imagery, and that had some nice stuff going on.
I will say, if I was not familiar with the book, I don't think I would have appreciated it as much. But knowing what the context was, I did really like it a lot.
It was.
I think that was like the best part of it, honestly.
It was really cool. I think,
and all the actors were great.
Mm-hmm. Also, I was really pretty interested in the plot. Like, I was surprised at how good it was.
It was really good. Honestly.
It was.
I would give it like a lot of stars, honestly.
Happier ending. I liked that too.
I think too, it's like you could watch the movie and like probably enjoy it without having any idea about the book at all.
Yeah.
I also like that they made Wilhelm, the person that he was writing to, an actual person.
Yeah,
that was Paul
with his buddy.
Paul, like that was cute.
It was.
I like
cute.
that a lot. I think I like the movie more than the book, but I'm glad that I read the book before the movie because it made me appreciate it more.
Same.
And when we are recording this, it's months in advance, but this movie has only come out like 2 weeks prior.
Yeah.
So I hope it does good. I think it's going to be an indie thing. It probably
for
won't
sure.
have the most ratings ever, but go watch Young Werther. I think it's good. I think it's worth it.
Maybe your like podcast will take off and then they'll get lots of ratings.
We'll see. We'll see. One could hope. Who cares? But either way, I'm glad that you are taking this journey with us.
A very long journey.
I don't know that I want to talk about taking journeys tonight, guys.
What are you talking about?
Remember, he's going on a long journey. He'll never see you well.
Oh,
again, brother.
I'm not talking about that.
Forever.
Oh my god! I'm talking about a journey to bed. What are you talking about?
That's
I
what
got
I'm
a
gonna
journey
do.
across town.
All right, we will see you next time on Liquor&Literature. And remember, keep the pages turning and the drinks flowing. Oh. Audio engineering, logo creation, and social media content was produced by Lauren Rainey with Rainey Film and Video. Stock music tracks have been provided by Motion Array and Adobe Stock. Find us on Facebook and Instagram at Liquor&Literature Podcast, where you can dive into more details about the books, authors, and movies we cover. You can find all of our episodes at liquorliteraturePodcast.podbean.com. Until next time, keep the pages turning and the drinks flowing.
Hey fans, just so you're aware, another tool for your tool belt. I run a suicide prevention and mental health awareness campaign called Socktober. You can find it on Facebook, but basically we hand out socks in the month of October with a message of mental health awareness and how to kind of help cope. It's a little coping mechanism thing to help with depression. And that is called Socktober. So if you're interested, please go over to the Facebook page, check us out. And we're hoping to help plenty of people with depression and maybe prevent a couple suicides. Thanks. Have a great day.